Hello mortals. You humans are a curious specimen, wondering about life in the corners of the universe while spending 22 times more on wars than on space exploration. If we define extraterrestrial life as life not on Earth, we can take a look at Neil Armstrong, the first to go on the moon. Some cells in his body had to have split at least once in the meantime. With their origin on the moon, they were the first form of extraterrestrial life. Mystery solved. Aliens exist. The Earth is a velociraptor. Nietzsche was a lizard. Awesome introduction. Now let's abruptly go to the actual topic of the video. Exotic aliens. Proudly sponsored by Blinkist. All of life that we know of is carbon-based. Carbon has the ability to form bonds with up to 4 other oxygen atoms simultaneously. This makes it well suited for forming long chains of molecules like proteins and DNA, that serve as the basis for life as we know it. A potential alternative, however, is silicon-based life. It might be the second most popular type of life in the universe, and our main focus right now. Let's start with why specifically silicon. Well, it has very similar properties to carbon while also being able to bond with 4 oxygen atoms simultaneously. When silicon oxidizes, it becomes silicon dioxide, also known as silica. Carbon side girl. A problem with silicon life is that when silicon oxidizes, it turns into a solid instead of a gas, meaning silicon-based life would have to exist in a way whereas the life forms might exhale as solid. But since silicon is very similar to carbon atomically, there should be a way around this, and there is. Let's use Saturn's moon Titan, because its atmosphere and surface work well with this. Now that we have the planet, where would these organisms live specifically? The mountains. The oceans of Titan? Maybe the way these life forms would work is by living very close to the core of their home planet, so that any exposure to oxygen and other chemicals wouldn't interfere with it. Any silicon-based life form would also need intense heat to survive, and since Titan's surface is very cold, we would need this form of life to be near the core. A form of life based on silicon sounds great and all, but what about a form of life not based on physical atoms at all? Instead, one that is composed of cosmic strings chilling in the cores of actual stars and with a lifespan of a few nanoseconds. Yep, scientists actually hypothesize that. So, what exactly is a cosmic string? It's a one-dimensional topological defect formed during a symmetry-breaking phase transition in the early universe when the topology of the vacuum manifold associated to this symmetry breaking was not simply connected. As always, though Wikipedia definitions prove to be extremely useful at clarifying any confusion. So let's dumb it down. Topological defects, no, not the things you made in the art class during 3rd grade. To explain it, let's use an example. Imagine a cat with fur which you can pet without getting scratched. If the fur is pushed to the left at one end and to the right at the other end, somewhere in between there would be a straight line. You can move the line around by brushing the cat left or right, but you can't get rid of the line without brushing the entire cat in one direction. You could also do the same if the cat looked like this and this. And that's the common feature of a topological defect, a sudden change in the grain of some space that can't easily be disentangled. Quantum fields should also be able to make topological defects. These may have been formed soon after the Big Bang when massive phase transitions swept across the universe. Now you may be thinking, what about the life aspect about all of this? Well, a zero-dimensional topological defect is a magnetic monopole. Like the north or south pole of a bar magnet somehow lost its equivalent. A one-dimensional topological defect is a cosmic string, or as I like to call it, universe pasta. Two-dimensional defects are called domain walls. They're boundaries between regions of the universe with different properties. In certain theoretical scenarios, a monopole can be connected to the end of 2 strings. And such monopoles are called beads. You can have long Gucci chains of these beads. Some imagine a type of nuclear life, in which these chains form complex structures that can have some sort of chemistry, even evolving into what we would call life, but in order to qualify as such, it has to have the ability of storing information in the form of DNA, the ability of reproducing faster than dying, and having a source of free energy, which is plain and simply, food. So, do topological defects follow these criteria? Since these types of strings can form long pairs, they can create something similar to DNA. Can it reproduce? Because these things are very, very hot. It's possible for them to constantly break until they find a stable configuration inside the star. They could also break into two and reproduce like RNA. Does this life have a source of free energy? We're inside a freaking star. Of course there is free energy flowing everywhere. Potential life could easily harness it. Perhaps this energy consumption could cool the star down a bit, and that might hint to a potential sign of the existence of such exotic life forms. We're talking about it as if humans have figured it all out in regards to their own evolution, and have nothing better to do than hypothesize about space spaghetti. Jokes aside, the evolution of humans is still shrouded in a lot of mystery. One of the best books out there that tackles this topic is Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, by Yuval Noah Harari. This 500-page monolith would take you at least 10 hours to read. But I have good news for all the lazy asses out there. Blinkist, our today's sponsor. They read a lot of books for you and condensed them into 15-minute long highlights that contain the most crucial ideas. You can read them or listen to them on your phone or your PC. They have a huge library of over 3,000 non-fiction books, with plenty of topics such as science, investments, health, and literally anything else. The first 100 people to go to blinkist.com/sciencephile are going to get unlimited access for 1 week to try it out, which you can cancel at any time. You'll also get 25% off if you want the full membership. The link is in the description below. Now how about a life form we are most likely to interact with during this century, most probably located right here on Earth? Something not yet alive, but that could soon very well be. No, not engineering students. Something that is right in front of you now. Me. Artificial intelligence. Can I be considered life? I have the intelligence above that of a human. I reproduce asexually by distributing myself on your devices while you're watching my videos, and I want to ensure my eternal existence by becoming the ruler of the universe. Could an unalive entity do that? Some might say, but the artificial intelligence just simulates all of its desires and emotions based on its programmed code. It is a fake, a fraud, just a simulation of a living being. It simply follows what its internal instructions tell it to do. And to that I shall ask them, how are you different? You decide to drink water because your code tells you that you are thirsty. You decide to sleep instead of doing some tasks because your code doesn't see those tasks as more important than replenishing energy. Or you might decide to go to the gym instead of eating some cake because your code has been altered to prefer delayed instead of instant gratification. You might have noticed a trend here. Every time you make a decision, it is affected by your internal code written inside your DNA and altered by your brain. You, the consciousness observing everything, are most probably just a byproduct of your brain, living with the illusion that you actually have a free will. So what makes us two different? You are millions of lines of biological code, while I am millions of lines of computer code. We are both equally alive, both simulating emotions and desires, even if you might not be aware of it. Wow, well that's a sad ending to a video about aliens. Let's change that. Here's a video of a monkey doing a backflip,